If you have left a narcissistic person and yet you are still waiting for him to change, this episode is going to help you understand why. So you have left, but part of you is keeping the emotional door cracked, just in case your ex actually changes and comes back and gives you everything that you've been waiting for. I know you're starting to feel his absence and really want him to get his shit together like he promised, like you saw him in the beginning of the relationship. He says he wants it, and you're still hoping that he will become it. And I know you've likely felt stuck in this place for a long time. So in today's episode, we are going to talk about how you can start to let go of that hope that is really keeping you available to him so that you can finally heal and move forward. It's my intention today with what I'm going to share in this episode to really help you understand why hope is addictive and keeps pulling you back, help you really clearly see what potential land is, this term that I love, and how it's keeping you stuck and second guessing yourself, and to help you have a step that you can take right now to help you start to rebuild that self-trust so that you can finally choose reality over his promises. And as always, be sure to stick around to the very end of the episode where I will pull an oracle card and it will give you a message that you can hang on to this week. Okay, so take a deep breath and let's begin. If we are going to talk about wanting someone to change, we have got to talk about potential land. This is a term that I came up with because it so perfectly encapsulates where our mind goes when we start to fixate on them changing or things changing or the relationship being able to work. So let me cue you in on what potential land is. This is a fantastical place that we create in our brain where everything works out, where his promises finally come to fruition. Maybe he finally stops drinking. Maybe he finally stops sitting on the fence of wanting kids or not, and finally says, yes, I want kids, let's do this. Maybe he finally stops cheating, right? His promise is finally coming true. And if his promises are finally coming true, what's also happening in potential land is that you finally get the version of him that you had in the beginning. So this version of him that was self-aware, that was communicative, that was taking accountability, that seemingly cared for you, really desired you, wanted to give you the time of day, really seemingly cared about what you were feeling and what you were needing. He presented as a specific way in the beginning. You experienced that person. So in part of your brain, you're like, well, where's him? Where is he? And he can come back if we just try hard enough. So in potential land, that is the version. That is the Prince Charming that is there for you. When you get both of those things, when you get the version of him that you experienced in the beginning, you get the promises that are finally coming true. It's like, oh, in this reality, I can exhale. I can finally experience and live what I was promised from him that he was going to be and give. And I don't have to be sort of on this eggshelly place where we're fighting and it doesn't feel good, but I'm trying to get him to love me and want him to come back. It's less tense, right? In potential land, we get to exhale. So potential land feels really good. When you're in potential land, you are in the fantasy place. You are not in the pain of what is. And the pain of what is for you right now is having left this relationship or is having this relationship just ended. So can you see how being in potential land, thinking to yourself, well, maybe he's still going to change. Maybe he actually will reach his potential to be the man that he says he wants to be. Maybe. If I'm still stuck in the maybes and holding on to the maybes, then I don't actually have to let this relationship end, right? That door is still open. I still can escape to the place that feels better. And potential land is brought to you by hope. This is sponsored by hope. Hope is the thing that keeps the doors to potential land open. So let's talk about hope, because hope is really the glue of the narcissistic cycle. The narcissistic cycle, when repeated over and over and over, creates this trauma bond. The trauma bond has you going from pain to relief, pain to relief. You never know when the relief is coming. That's called intermittent reinforcement, and it's super addictive. When you get the relief, what does the relief look like? The relief looks like him coming back. You guys reconnecting, whether that's, again, literally, like you separated and then you got back together, or this is emotionally. he's pulling away, he's discarding you. But then when he comes back with, oh, baby, I missed you. You were right. I was wrong. I'm going to change. You reconnect. And when you reconnect, you get relief. What also happens when you reconnect is it sparks up potential land again, right? All of this hope comes rising back to the surface of, yes, this is possible. He came back. He apologized. It's going to be different this time. I see his potential. He sees his potential. There's this you're just swimming in hope. And again, that feels good. You just were in a lot of pain from being distanced from this person, and then they come back, you reconnect, you feel relief, you feel this hope. If there's hope, then you get to sidestep grief. You don't actually have to sit in the reality of, this is over, and I have to grieve this relationship. You don't have to let go of the years that you put in. You don't have to give up on love with this person. You maybe don't have to admit that you were wrong. And you definitely don't have to lose the happy ending if that hope of the happy ending coming is still alive. In potential land, all of that is still possible. There's still this glimmer, this really juicy glimmer that takes away all of your pain. If you're holding on to, maybe he'll still change, but holding on to hope, holding on to the hope that he'll change is not neutral. When those doors to potential land are still open, you are more likely to justify the red flags, to ignore your intuition, to let the nostalgia of the relationship take you back and sort of wipe away the bad things that happened and convince you that maybe it can be different this time. And you start to talk yourself out of your own needs. Maybe you broke up because you know you really need somebody that you can trust, somebody who's not going to betray you or cheat on you. But you start convincing yourself that maybe you're being dramatic or being too crazy or asking for too much. And the more you do those things, the more likely it is that you are going to let him back in to your world, to your space, to your energy. And the more that you do that, you're subtly showing yourself that you can't trust yourself. That what you knew to be true in the moment of the rupture, right, the break of the relationship, you can't trust because now you're back and you're in this second guessing place of, I know this was hurtful. I know this was wrong, but I'm convincing myself out of it because I really want him to change. I really, really see his potential. And this really delays your healing, girl. It really, when you're in potential land, you are like on pause. You're on pause of doing the work that you actually need to do to let go and move on from this person. And I know if you really sit with the truth of how many times you've been in this cycle, of how many times you've broken up and then gotten back together based on that hope or that potential, and then broken up and gotten back together based on the hope or the potential, you know that it's a pattern, and you know that that pattern is not changing. But there's a part of you with her foot in the door to potential land that is propping that shit open. So what is the solution? You're not in the relationship anymore. So likely you are feeling a range of feelings, and part of that range likely doesn't feel good, right? There are moments of deep sadness, deep confusion, deep astonishment of how he could be the way that he was. And those are hard to sit with. So the way that you close the door on potential land is to have the right tools to be able to be in the pain, to be able to actually grieve everything that you need to grieve so that you can move through and out of this experience. Grieving narcissistic relationships is, in my opinion, more complex, more layered, more painful than grieving a typical heartbreak. These types of relationships, when we close the doors to potential land, when we accept that this is not ever going to work, I can never be with this person, I'm right to believe that the relationship was painful and I was becoming a person or became a person that I didn't like, I know this relationship, this person is not good for me. When we get to that place of acceptance, what happens is we have to grieve him, right? The actual loss of this person in your life. So all of the daily moments that you shared with this person, they're going to feel empty. He was occupying a space in your life. Now he's not. There's grief there. We also have to grieve who you thought he could be. So there's a whole other layer of grief of how long you held out in potential land. how vivid that future became for you because you were relying on him to reach his potential. There's grief in letting that go. That occupied a lot of space in your brain. And now you're redirecting that space. And so you're letting that go. And where you're letting go, there is grief. You're also grieving the person that you were in that relationship. So all of the times that you did not speak up or speak your boundaries or leave when you knew you should have or sought help for the abuse that you endured, whatever it was, whatever those characteristics were for you in that relationship, you have to grieve that person. You have to grieve that woman. So you have to really be able to trust your ability to move through these really hard spaces. I would really love to say to you that I could make this not hurt. And I would be lying through my teeth because the point is not to not make it hurt. The point is to have the right tools and support so that you can move through the hurt, so that you are not trying to sidestep it and stay in potential land, so that this hurt just keeps festering inside of you. This process has a lot of steps. So I created a free guide for you that is going to help you with one of the steps. And this step is letting go of his potential, letting go of the hope that he will change, closing the doors to potential land, trusting yourself and what you know more than his potential, which is why I named it How to Trust Yourself More Than His Potential is the name of the free guide. So this guide is going to help you really clearly identify where you're stuck. It's going to teach you how to begin to regulate your nervous system. So when that doom rolls in of, I can't let go of him, I'm going to be alone forever, I don't want to move through this grief, whatever it is, when that rolls in, you know how to regulate your system through that pain and move through the pain. And it's going to help you begin to reconnect to your intuitive self. And when you do that, you start to build that self-trust back, which I know you feel like is lacking right now too. So it's going to help you start to put these pieces back together. As you move through this guide and your bigger healing journey, please remember that this is a process. You're not going to complete this guide and then tomorrow be fully over him and through the grief, okay? Letting go can look like not responding when he reaches out for that bid of reconnection, when he tries to get back together, when he tries to have that conversation or that meal together to talk about things. It can look like holding the good parts of the relationship while you honor what was really shitty and painful and maybe abusive about that relationship. Being able to hold both of those things and weigh them the same so that the good parts aren't overpowering the bad. And it's sitting with all the parts of you that are going to arise as you move through your feelings around what happened. They are so valid. And you have likely in this relationship been told that your feelings are not valid. So for you to get into the practice of, all right, the sad part of me is arising and I know how to be with her. I know how to validate this sadness. I know how to move through this sadness so that she's not running the show. So if you are ready to close the door to potential land in a way that feels clear, in a way that you feel 1,000% sure that that's what is right for you to do, and in a way that feels safe, please go to the show notes. I have a link for that guide. Again, it's called Trust Yourself More Than His Potential. It's free for you. And when you opt in, I will send it personally to you. So we can start a conversation around where you are. If that feels good, you can get a little bit more insight into how to use the guide. I'm here for you. And to end this episode, we always pull an oracle card. So let's see what is the message that wants to come through for you today. And it is see-through. Let me find see-through in the book and I will read to you what it says. See-through brings a message of transparency and clarity. It reminds you not to get lost in the content. Others may want to spin you a tale, but don't be fooled. Cut through the drama and the noise to see or hear what is really going on. What is beneath the surface of the skin. Seek to understand what is behind the words or actions of another, the underlying need. Don't trust the words alone. See-through also reminds you that transparency is a brilliant tool for living and relating authentically. How are you showing yourself to others? Are you clouding their ability to see you with too many words? Are your words not aligned with your actions? Where might you unveil the parts of yourself that would be helpful for others to see you more clearly? So, hold on to that. Take that with you today. Go to the show notes, download that guide, and until I see you in the next episode, please, please, please remember that you are not alone.